Main event of Raw was supposed to be a six-pack challenge between Sasha Banks, Naomi, Becky Lynch, Asuka, Doudrop, and Nikki ASH, with the winner receiving a title opportunity for Bianca Belair's Raw Women's Championship. In the middle of the programming, it was changed to a #1 contender singles match between Asuka and Becky Lynch. Wrestling fans expressed their confusion online, on Twitter, and other apps over the course of the next hour. The dirt sheets provided us with a report that suggests Sasha Banks walked out on Raw, forcing the company to change their plans. This is what the report says via PW Insider. The word making the rounds backstage at the taping is that Sasha Banks took issue with some of the planned creative for the original main event, a Raw six-pack challenge, to determine Bianca Belair's next challenger at Hell in a Cell. Banks had a meeting with Vince McMahon, and the belief amongst those we've heard from is that when McMahon didn't choose to change direction on the plans, Banks made the decision to leave the taping. Naomi, her WWE Women's Tag Team Championship partner, left with Banks even though she was also booked to be in the main event match. WWE quickly shot several new segments with Adam Pearce and Becky Lynch to set up Asuka versus Becky Lynch as the new main event. This is a developing story, so there may be additional updates. Wow, if this is true, this is a very interesting story that could possibly shake things up. I'm sure WWE wanted to save Asuka versus Becky Lynch for another pay-per-view, but now instead they are forced to have the match tonight on Raw. It is strange that WWE just didn't decide to enter two different women into the match rather than making it a singles match. Zelina Vega and Carmella could have easily replaced them. If I'm WWE, I'd figure out a way to make both women win the match, or have a faulty finish like that or something along those lines, so that you could set up a triple threat match with Belair, Asuka, and Becky. That just sounds like it could be a match of the year candidate. Imagine it takes place inside the Hell in a Cell. That would just make it even more insane. Aside from the outcome and the result of this breaking news, it does make you question what exactly happened with Sasha Banks. Was the finish of the match really that bad, or did Sasha just overreact? Since we don't have too much information yet, I'm going to say that we really don't know. However, part of me feels like Sasha Banks takes her character very seriously, and if she really felt like this was going to damage her character or even her tag team run right now, I totally understand. I don't think Doudrop or Nikki ASH was going to win this match. I also didn't see Asuka or Becky winning either. That was probably going to be a singles match at the pay-per-view to keep Becky and Bianca away from one another. Therefore, Sasha and Naomi, one of them was going to win the match, and they would have most likely had to pin each other. I can see Banks not wanting to do that because she wants to protect the tag team. Sasha Banks is very dedicated in making those titles mean something, and you can tell that Vince already doesn't care if he wanted one of the champions to beat the other champion to challenge for the Raw Women's title. That is a bad look because it makes their titles feel less important and insignificant. It seems like Banks decided to protect her current title reign as well as the prestige of the women tag team belts. I respect it, to be completely honest with you. On top of that, if Banks was scheduled to win, she was just going to take a big loss to Bianca again. There's really no point in having her lose another important match. I understand that McMahon doesn't really care to book her like that, but she clearly does and values herself. Right now, with what I think the story is, I'm on Sasha's side for this, unless we get new information that could change my mind. Until then, I'm on Sasha's side. And as I finished wrapping up this video, there was a WWE statement that came out, and I will read it to you guys right now. It says, when Sasha and Naomi arrived at the arena this afternoon, they were informed of their participation in the main event of tonight's Monday Night Raw. During the broadcast, they walked into WWE Head of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis' office with their suitcase in hand, placed their tag team championship belts on the desk, and walked out. They claimed they weren't respected enough as tag team champions. And even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claimed they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they'd had matches with those individuals in the past with no consequence. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. We regret that we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. This is actually wild. I don't remember WWE ever releasing something like this in the past. It is absolutely crazy. And you know what? All I have to say is that I think I was right in terms of how Sasha Banks felt like she wasn't being treated with respect when it came to her being a tag team champion. Vince McMahon just doesn't care enough about those belts which shows you that he never cared about Banks in the first place. He just put her in that tag team division just cause it makes her feel special. But at the end of the day, he doesn't book it like that. And kudos to Sasha Banks for stepping up and saying like, no, you traded these belts like trash for the last year, for the last few years, ever since the installment of it. So I'm going to stand up to you and tell you, no, you're doing a bad job. Treat us with respect. So I'm gonna have to clap for that. I'm just saying, I respect what Sasha Banks did. A lot of people are gonna come out here and call her and Naomi a bunch of brats and whatnot, but at the end of the day, they respect themselves as individuals in this business more so than Vince and all the other writers. I don't know about walking out, that's kind of crazy, but at the end of the day, that's what happened, and hopefully this does not lead into any firings. Like if Sasha Banks is released because of something like